Yes, you're seeing it right. I'm doing reviews for 4 episodes at once, and I think that has a good reason because the Book of Boba Fett is not my favorite of the TV shows. It's one of my least favorites, actually, and the first 4 episodes are exactly why. And usually I try to be more positive on my channel and not complain too much about Star Wars, not harp too much on the things I dislike, but in this case, considering it's part of my review series leading up to The Mandalorian and Grogu, I kind of have to talk about it. Also, in addition to that, we got the announcement of Maul Shadow Lord releasing in April, which makes my schedule with videos a little bit more tricky, and therefore I was like, okay, let's just bunch up these episodes so that I have a little bit more time to review Maul properly by the time that comes out, because that is one thing that I do think I'll like. But as I usually like to do with these kind of reviews, I like to go back to how this all started, because when it came to Boba Fett, this was actually supposed to be a movie, along with the Han Solo and Obi-Wan movie back when the anthology movies were announced. They announced a bunch of anthology movies for characters that they thought would be a big success with Star Wars fans because they're popular characters. Han Solo, Obi-Wan, Boba Fett. Now, the Han Solo movie we got, but it didn't do well for several reasons, and that's why Boba Fett and Obi-Wan were turned into TV shows, which we now have. And it's funny that Solo wasn't particularly well received, and Obi-Wan and Boba Fett also were not that well reviewed. Now, there are fans of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan, and if you are one of those fans, good for you. I'm not one of them. You may not like what I have to say about the show, even though I do think I have a decent argument as to why I don't like it, and it's fine to disagree, It's just that I don't want to upset anyone. I don't want to make anyone an enemy because they're like, oh, but I love the Book of Boba Fett and you're so wrong for disliking it. So I'm like, this is just my opinion. You're allowed to have your opinion. I'm trying to be civil about this, but I was not looking forward to any of this in the first place, all of the characters' anthology movies, and it turned out that I didn't like the movie and the 2 TV shows that came off of it. However, of course, I do like the final 3 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, but I think those have other reasons. So let's just first get into reviewing these first 4 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett. Because like I already said in my reviews for The Mandalorian, I was not a fan of the fact that they brought back the character in the first place. I thought his inclusion in The Mandalorian was fine, like it served a purpose, but it could have been any other character. But the big reason that they decided to bring him into The Mandalorian is so that he could have his own TV show, which I was like, oh really, we're gonna have this? And I think Boba Fett is better used as like a side character, like a cool side villain that, gets to Han in Empire Strikes Back. And that's about the extent of it. I was not a fan of his inclusion in the prequels. I don't really think it added anything to the character. If anything, it made me dislike the character more. His inclusion in the Clone Wars is like, I suppose it's like obligatory, but am I a fan of his inclusion in the Clone Wars? Not necessarily. So all of that was just to include the character in more things for the sake of it, which didn't do anything for me. Other people might feel different about that, as I said, but it didn't do anything for me, and that's kind of how I feel about this show. It's not doing anything for me. I don't really care about the character. The only thing that made me have hope for the Book of Boba Fett is the fact that it was connected to The Mandalorian. But the thing is, we need to wait for it, because episodes 5 and 6 really connected to The Mandalorian, and that's where I'm gonna really like the show and give rave reviews about it. But these first 4 episodes were honestly just tough to get through. And the funny thing is, by the time that I had watched the 3rd or 4th episode, I was so clocked out that I didn't even bother to watch the 5th episode. And by the time that one came around, all of a sudden I saw on social media pop up like, oh my god, this is the episode. And I was like, wait, what just happened? Oh, the Mandalorian showed up. Okay, that's why. So I was just so zoned out by the time that episodes 3 and 4 came around that, yeah, that just indicates it, I feel. So these first 4 episodes, again, have flashbacks in them, just like The Mandalorian did, just like Andor did. And in that regard, Andor and The Mandalorian actually showed a backstory to the character that we didn't know before. In the case of these flashback sequences for Boba Fett, First of all, we don't really see him as a kid. We do actually see a young Boba Fett on Kamino watching the Slave One fly away, but that's not really anything. We don't actually get interaction scenes between Boba and his father Jango, which could have been interesting, but no, just a couple of random shots of just him on Kamino, which is just like, ooh, look, nostalgia bait. You know that from the prequels. And I'm like, I honestly don't give a shit about that. And then also the backstory of how Boba Fett got out of the Sarlacc pit, how he lost his armor, how he went to the Tuskens. Okay, that is a little bit new, but I don't care about the Tusken storyline if I'm being quite honest. And then how he got the Slave One back, and then eventually we know he got the armor back because we saw the Mandalorian. I think everyone has seen the Mandalorian, so we know that Boba Fett ended up there. And I'm smart enough to figure out how it happened. None of these flashback sequences of him being with the Tuskens is improving my experience of knowing what happened to him. It's just paint by numbers, showing exactly what I had already figured out. There's nothing to me that's interesting that really makes me go like, oh yeah, that is something that I didn't know that I should have known. So these flashback sequences to me are moot. We know that eventually he got to Fennec, which is like the weakest fucking storyline. He was just sitting somewhere and all of a sudden, oh, something's going on. Let's check out what's going on over there. Whoop-de-fucking-do. I already know that he got to Fennec. I already know that he got the Slave One back. None of that is interesting to me. So all of that entire backstory of him with the Tuskens, the flashbacks, don't care for it. And it's not that you can't make something exciting where we already know the outcome. Andor is the prime example of knowing what happens to a character, because we have seen Rogue One, we have seen where Cassian ends up with, but all of the backstory that we see in Andor with, flashbacks of him as a kid makes it so much more compelling and interesting. But of course, the Book of Boba Fett is not made by Tony Gilroy. It's made by Jon Favreau and Robert Rodriguez. And all due respect to them, they have made some good stuff in the past. But Andor, it is not. Like, the gist of it is that it just reminds me of Solo. We are seeing things that we know have happened, and I could have figured out how it happened in my mind. I don't need to see Solo to know that Han won the Falcon from Lando and that he did the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs or whatever. The same goes for Boba Fett here. So that is why I personally don't feel anything while watching this. And I feel there are just a couple of missed opportunities. A very quick and easy one is when the Jawas find him and are taking off his armor because they have found the price, just like with R2 in A New Hope, they scream Utini in A New Hope. They don't even scream Utini here. It's like one of the funniest fucking things that you want a Jawa to scream, and they don't even bother with that. Like, wow, that's just lazy. But if you really want a bigger missed opportunity where I'm like, this could have been interesting, it's like, yeah, his time with the Tuskens, Boba's time with the Tuskens is, like, he earns their respect by fighting a giant monster. He then helps them take out the train with the Pykes and Nikto people. Like, I just can't care about any of this, and I do think they could have done something interesting. But one of the big issues that I have with the show is I don't think Tamara Morrison is that good of an actor to lead a show. Again, as a side character, works alright. Not as a lead of a show who is supposed to be our protagonist. Also because, besides the flashbacks, we see him in the present time leading, well, his newly formed crime organization on Tatooine, which I don't really understand what he is doing there, what he's trying to do, but all of a sudden, this villain, this antagonistic character from the original trilogy, is now a protagonist, is now supposed to be a good guy, and I'm supposed to root for him. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work for me. I see him more as an anti-hero, and the thing is, there are examples of stories how you make an antagonistic character work or an anti-hero. Wicked is a perfect example of it, or V for Vendetta, or Deadpool. Like, that can work sometimes. But again, you need a charismatic character, you need something to hold on to, and unfortunately Boba Fett / Tamara Morrison isn't it for me. Now, there are a few things that I actually do like about the show, and I do want to point them out because I don't want to be labeled as an absolute hater of everything. I do want to credit the show where it deserves some, and probably the best thing about this entire show is the amount of practical effects. There are a lot of people in costumes, there are a lot of practical things that they interact with, especially in the Tusken camp. They have real tents, they have real speeder bikes and speeder bike elements, and all of that was made real. Of course, you have the volume behind them to make it look better than just a green screen. And I do think they actually put in quite some effort to make it look as good as it does. The same way that the Mandalorian has done that Andor has done it even more, because of course in Andor you don't have a volume, you actually have humongous sets and locations which they made and went to. But in regards to the Book of Boba Fett, they actually put in a lot of effort into actually filmmaking. So that's definitely something that I have to give you credit for. Something that I personally really loved to see was Black Krrsantan, a character from a comic book, which I've read. I've actually read most of it, if not all of the Dr. Aphra comic, which, by the way, is a good comic. I would recommend it to anyone, and I think it's actually a good starting point if you've never read a Star Wars comic before. Dr. Aphra is a good series, and Black Krrsantan is in it. So, a character from a comic being transferred over into a live-action TV show, something that was really nice to see. It does make me wonder if Dr. Aphra is ever going to appear in any capacity in a live-action TV show or movie. Would be very cool, but I'm not holding my breath for that. Another cool thing was to see Danny Trejo as the Rancor Keeper. It makes sense that Danny Trejo is in a Robert Rodriguez project, but what I really love is at one point he mentions that the Witches of Dathomir rode on the Rancor, and that's a reference to old legends. That's something that canon has not really gone into, but that's something that I know from Legends where I'm like, okay, this is the type of fan service that I really love. Now, I have a little bit of a hot take when it comes to this show, and that is that in episode 3, we get introduced to a Gen Z biker gang, which a lot of people were very upset about. We're like, oh my god, what the hell is this? This is the worst thing in Star Wars. And while it's not my favorite thing, I don't mind it all that much. I didn't think it was that bad. I think it has a place in Star Wars just like so many other things. You cannot tell me that Jar Jar Binks or As Morgan is as bad as the biker gang. Now, again, this is not one of my favorite things or anything, but I think a worse crime is that this show calls the Slave One a fire spray ship because we needed to rebrand it because the Slave One is not politically correct. Fuck off. It's been called the Slave One since 1980, maybe even before that. And it's literally been called the Slave One in a canon TV show. And all of a sudden we're rebranding to this shit. What the fuck? Okay, we're back into complaints. We're back into issues again. I can't say anything else good about the show. I'm sorry. That was it. Also, it wouldn't be a video that I made where I didn't complain about the Slave One being renamed, would it? So, that's just going to always be a thing for me. I'm very upset about the fact that they renamed the ship because, as far as I'm concerned, that's the Slave One. It's not the Fire Spray or Jango Fett or Boba Fett's ship. Shut up, Slave One. Anyway, so when it comes to the issues that I have, in addition to what I already mentioned, I will start with some very small ones that really do aggravate me to overall bigger issues that I still have with the show. One small one, but it really annoys the shit out of me, is that Twi'leks are completely inaccurate in this show. When it comes to Twi'leks, that's probably my favorite alien species created in Star Wars, and there's a specific thing about them that is very noticeable. The men have normal ears and pointed teeth. However, a big character in the show, the Mayor's Major Domo, doesn't have pointed teeth. Did the crew forget to put it in? Or did they complain about it and then they were like, okay, let's not use it then? That's bullshit. Male Twi'leks are supposed to have pointed teeth. Very simple thing. Has been in all other canon shows of Star Wars. Or even movies. In anything else That is canon in Star Wars. Male Twi'leks have pointed teeth. But this Major Domo fucking piece of shit that I honestly don't care about. I really hate his character. In addition to that, he also doesn't have the correct teeth. But then you have the female Twi'leks who are supposed to have pointed ears, and it also doesn't really look like they do, but might just be me. Now there's one scene in episode 4 where Boba is having dinner with a bunch of people who he wants to have join him, and only at the moment that one guy is like, "What prevents us from killing you?" That is when the Rancor responds and is like, "Oh hey, here we go." Very convenient timing from the Rancor to finally let his presence be known, even though he could have done that 10-15 minutes ago when you were also sitting up there having dinner and talking. But also in that specific scene, Fennec is saying like, all of you could have taken Bib Fortuna's place, but you didn't, and it took Boba Fett to come in to take his place because Bib Fortuna was such a threat. Did we see Bib Fortuna? Like, Boba Fett literally walked into the palace and was like, "I'm gonna shoot you and you're done and I'm gonna take over now." Bib Fortuna was a fat fucking piece of shit who offered no threat as far as I'm concerned. Did we see the same scene? Why are we presenting Boba as something better than he really is? He didn't do fucking shit, Fennec. Like, are you kidding me? But my biggest issue with this entire show probably is that I don't care about any of the characters that I see. I already pointed out my issues with Boba Fett himself. Our protagonist is not an interesting character. Fennec is probably my favorite character, but that's more so by default. It's not necessarily that Fennec is that good of a character, it's just she's better than everyone else, and Ming-Na Wen is a cool actress, so I respect that. But other than that, I can't care about any of the characters, which also sucks because, you know, we have a villain in the Pykes that I don't care about whatsoever. And it's not that the Pykes can't be threatening. We have seen the Pykes be villains and be threatening in the Clone Wars. Like, we've literally had arcs in the Clone Wars where the Pykes were like, "Oh, these are the big bads," and they're actually threatening. But no. In these first 4 episodes, I don't really feel any threat from them whatsoever. That actually comes later, which again, I'll talk about when I get to the final episodes. But in these first 4 episodes, I don't care about any of them. Like, there are also the Nikto people on the speeder bikes. Well, the moment that Boba has his Slave 1 back, he just shoots all of them and that's done. That's taken care of. So none of the characters are interesting and I can't care about any of it. And I want to care about Star Wars, but my god, you make it hard, Book of Boba Fett. So in the end, to me, the Book of Boba Fett, at least the first 4 episodes, don't offer me anything that I didn't already know, and it just makes me not care about any of it. It's like, when I was watching these episodes, and this is probably like the 3rd time that I've watched them, most of the time I was just either typing out my review or playing a game and being like, I don't fucking care about any of this because it's just background noise to me. All of it is not interesting. Actually, the most exciting part was the final moment in episode 4 when they say that they need muscle and you have a little bit of a theme of the Mandalorian, which is like, oh yes, we're gonna get him next. That's cool. But other than that, I was just like completely zoned out of it. But that's all I can say about the first 4 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett. I very much look forward to reviewing the next 2, especially. Like, the final episode, I'm not entirely sure about if I really do like it, but 5 and 6, absolutely yes. Look out for those reviews. I'm gonna be raving, I feel. But that's for next week and the week after. For now, I'm just curious. Do you like the Book of Boba Fett? And do you think I'm wrong in my opinion? And do you disagree? Let me know any and all thoughts you have in the comments below. Please leave a like on the video if you've liked it and subscribe to my channel for more Star Wars content. And of course, until my next video, may the Force be with you.